Hello, my name is Lauren Post, and I'm here with RJ Post, the author of Lion Taming, Dating, and Other Dangerous Endeavors. Thank you, RJ, for being here this evening.
Hi, Lauren. It's nice to see you.
It's good to see you, too. So, a few questions. Why Lion Taming, Dating, and Dangerous Endeavors? That's a very interesting title. Why did you choose that?
Well, the first story in the book, which is a collection of short stories, the first story is called The Safe List, and it involves a fellow that actually has a series of adventures over the course of a day when he's trying to win the heart of the girl he has a crush on. And one of the things that actually happens to him during that day is an encounter with an escaped lion.
Wow, that definitely sounds like an interesting way to get yourself out of the friend zone.
There you go. And that's where the lion taming part comes in. Several of the stories deal with relationships, or more specifically with dating and dating norms as they are today, as opposed to how they may have been 20 or 30 years ago. And so when you're dating, you have to put yourself out on a limb. You have to be vulnerable. You have to open yourself up to rejection. Hence the title, Lion Taming, Dating, and Other Dangerous Endeavors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So on the topic of dating, you've been married for how many years?
Been married for 34 years.
Wow, that's a long time, but I definitely can see that you have expertise in relationships. I'm super excited to have everyone read that. So what genre is this? Is it a series of different stories in different genres? Do you prefer one genre?
Well, that's a good question. There actually are several genres in the book. I don't really say that I write romance, because I know fans of romance in that genre have some particular things that they look for. And one of the things that many of them are expecting is a happy ending. And not all of my relationship stories end happily. Some of them are more ambivalent, or some of them are more about learning a lesson about life. Not a punishment sort of lesson like you learned your lesson. But more about learning a lesson about themselves or relationships than they are strictly about a happy ending. At least one of them does end happily. But so there's that. And then there are other things. There are a few mystery stories in there. There is a spy spoof that's actually written with misheard song lyrics.
Oh, it's some lovely mondegreens there.
Yeah, there's I think 27 different songs that misheard lyrics from them are featured in that. Then there are some others that are more along the lines of supernatural or paranormal or Twilight Zone sort of thing, if you will.
So, you mentioned paranormal real quick. I'm going to ask you a very serious question that our audience wants to know. Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe, and have you met Bigfoot? And do you believe in psychics?
Well, let's start with the psychics first.
Perfect.
I think people are gifted by God in all sorts of ways. And I think there are some people who are probably more in touch with that sense than the rest of us are. I can't say that I've ever actually met a psychic, but I think it's entirely possible that there are people who have that sense developed more than the average person.
Awesome.
As far as, what was the other question?
Aliens and Bigfoot. I.e., have you met Mr. Bigfoot himself?
Mr. Foot and I have never actually met.
Oh, shame.
Although I did see some pictures on Facebook recently of a couple of my relatives ran into him at a farmer's market.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I'll have to hit them up on that and see, do you actually like Jack Links, or is that just an advertising campaign?
Yeah, I haven't met Bigfoot, so I haven't been messing with him either.
Oh, God.
But Bigfoot and extraterrestrial life, I would say those both fall into the category for me where I am open to the idea that they might exist.
Fantastic.
Shakespeare said, there's more strange things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And that's my take on it as well. I certainly don't know enough to say that there isn't life on other planets, or that even they visit us here. I've never run into space aliens, and I've never run into Bigfoot. But it's a big world. He might be out there.
Definitely. Definitely. So, RJ, you've written multiple genres. Is there one genre you prefer the most? And, like, what was your inspiration behind this book?
Well, as to the genre question first, I think a lot of the things that I have read over the years would fall under the heading of literary fiction and not necessarily genre fiction. But certainly I cut my eye teeth on juvenile series fiction of the mystery variety.
Such as the Hardy Boys are like Nancy Drew?
Right.
Perfect.
Hardy Boys, Tom Swift, Nancy Drew, all that sort of thing. And one of the stories that I've heard several people say is their favorite in the book is the one called Mystery Girl, which is about 4 teenagers trying to solve an old murder mystery together.
Definitely, yes.
And so I would say that was the one that was most heavily influenced for me by that early influence of the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and even Scooby-Doo, if you will.
Oh, yes.
Those darn kids and their dog, But there's another story that I really like, the hard-boiled detective kind of story. The books of Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and Mickey Spillane.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't really feel like I could go at that directly. So instead, I wrote a spoof of that genre. And that story is called Whitefish.
Awesome. That's perfect.
While I like a lot of different things and I took the opportunity to explore them in the book, I think mysteries are certainly something that a lot of readers like, and it's one of my favorites too.
And for our readers at home who are into mysteries but aren't super huge, I'm a huge fan of old Hollywood, and Mystery Girl does bring that up a little bit. Does it not?
Yes, actually the mystery that they're trying to solve involves an old movie star from the silent film era.
Perfect. So, quick question. Was this book your sourdough starter? So many people in the pandemic have made sourdough at home or took up like painting. Was this something you decided to do during the pandemic when you had a little more time on your hands?
That's it exactly, Lauren. Well, for one thing, I was working from home, and that was nearly an hour and a half extra every day without my commute back and forth to work. So when I would get done with work at the end of the day and I had a little more time, I started exploring some of these ideas. Writing short stories was something I did many years ago when I was in high school and college. And then when I got out into the work world and I worked at newspapers for more than 30 years, I didn't have time to do that. And also, it's a different sort of writing when you're working for a newspaper. Everything has to be factual. Whereas when you're writing something like this, a work of fiction, it's true in a different way, in a larger, deeper way, even though the situations and the characters are fictitious. So I had the time and I wanted to see if that was something I could still do and I was still good at.
Awesome. I was going to say thank you so much for being here and thank you for that sort of explanation for us. One other question. How does your writing process work? Because you said it was completely different than writing a actual factual story like a building burnt down the other day that you would for the newspaper.
In some ways, they're similar. Now, obviously, if you were writing a story for a newspaper, the first thing you would do is go out and gather your facts. You would interview people. You would gather different sort of written materials like reports, be they a police report or some kind of study issued by a government agency or what have you. So you would gather all those facts and then you would go through them and organize them and then you would start putting together a narrative. You might have some direct quotes from your sources. When you're writing something like fiction, you are going to be putting together a narrative and you're going to be writing dialogue for your characters, but your research might be different. For instance, for one of the stories I wrote, When the Calliope Music Fades, I did a lot of research about old amusement parks that had gone out of business. places that were deserted, that there's a whole online presence of people who like to go to those locations and shoot photos and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of that research before I sat down to write my story, which was kind of an imagined history of an amusement park that never existed.
That's fantastic.
Lion Taming, Dating, and Other Dangerous Endeavors is available on Amazon and at these independent Nebraska bookstores. Susan's Books and Gifts in Aurora, Chapters Books and Gifts in Seward, Francie and Finch Bookshop in Lincoln, and The Bookworm in Omaha. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, follow, and share the RJ Post Author Facebook page and subscribe to my YouTube channel.